The jury has now spoken just minutes ago. A jury in downtown Los Angeles found Tory Lanez guilty of assault with a semi-automatic firearm in the shooting of Megan Thee Stallion, and he now faces years in prison. It's ultimately up to the judge, and that is not going to happen for some time. There's going to be a sentencing report and whatnot, but I think that he is in danger of getting a fairly significant prison term, given the way this case played out.
Yes.
And given the insinuation, at least, that there might have been witness tampering.
Witness tampering, the fact that she felt like, hey, I don't even want to be here anymore. Like, I think that there's a heavy burden right now on the whoever is going to be choosing this sentencing.
When we talk to the witness tampering, though, I mean, the biggest example of that was Kelsey's testimony, right? Kelsey's Meg's best friend or former best friend who was in the car that night, who back in September when she first met with detectives, and they played this interview during the trial, she was very forthright with information and made it very clear that it was Tory who fired this gun. And then you fast forward to the trial that started a couple weeks ago. She doesn't remember things. She didn't want to talk about things. She was trying to plead the fifth. It was very clear, and that's what prosecutors tried to make clear as well, that sometime between September and the trial date, something changed with Kelsey. Now, whether that was witness tampering or maybe her own decision, that's really only something that she and this possible other person may know. But nonetheless, I think the jury saw right through that, and so will the judge.
Well, and also now when it comes to sentencing, the judge can also consider the fact how weird it is that this bodyguard who was supposed to testify just mysteriously disappeared.
Right.
So there isn't that kind of hardcore proof. They haven't prosecuted him for this, but these are things judges can consider in whether to grant leniency, because remember, he could get up to from probation upward.
Yes.
And it doesn't work in his favor if there's a smell that there may have been some sort of tampering.
And we kind of saw that this was going to be a guilty verdict, right? I mean, just how quickly the jury decided on this thing. I mean, it was, what, 24 hours between when they were given the case and when they made their decision. So I think that they kind of saw where this was, and we'll see as far as the judge and the sentence.
And I will tell you one other thing. And the way this works, the dynamic with juries, and I've seen so much of this, whenever they're up against a holiday or a weekend, that's when they're most likely to reach a verdict. And here, you've got the Friday before Christmas,
yes.
And all of, and the New Year's week and everything else. They wanted to come in with a verdict. I was positive this was going to come down today.
But also, too, they have really great, I feel like what sealed the deal in this case was the witness who testified what he saw from the balcony. It really painted a picture of just how terrible the incident was for Megan, but it kind of solidified what she had been saying. Like, she was caught off guard. They said that we had learned at that point that she had actually been, they were trying to physically still beat her after she was shot. So I think that might come into play, too, when you're talking about the sentencing and the leniency.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one more thing about the tea leaves that we were reading beforehand is the jury had a question about what the term willfully meant. And what that meant to me is they had already determined that he had fired this weapon, and they were just seeing how to assess his intentionality. If you're asking only what the term willfully shot at someone means, it means you're leaning in one direction, and that was guilty.
And that this was an intentional shooting, because remember, he allegedly said dance.
Right.
And that suggests that this was all intentional. It wasn't the negligent discharge of a firearm, that by finding that he's guilty of assault, it means intentional. And that does not bode well for him. So, what we need to see, number one, is, the sentencing report, and there will be a hearing. And ultimately, Tory Lanez himself could testify and ask the judge to spare him from a long prison term.
Which I don't even think would happen.